it was really like it was three parts of a game for Brock Purdy. And in the first half, the story of the game at halftime was that the Niners, I thought Kyle Shanahan gave them a lot of opportunities to make plays, and their offense missed a lot of plays. That was the story of the first half. The story of the third quarter was they turned it around and they made a bunch of plays on offense and on defense. And then the story of the fourth quarter was they stopped playing defense in the way that had been effective. They stopped pressuring Dak Prescott, and they did not have any efficiency in the passing game. Do you know how many passes the 49ers completed in the fourth quarter of the game? I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Not five's too long because I don't want to do that song. 1. Do you know who caught the only pass of the fourth quarter? Kyle Juszczyk. At the end, like that third down play. That was it. Ricky Pearsall got a carry, which was a great play. Garendo carried the ball 6 times. Patrick Taylor carried it twice. Brock Purdy carried it twice. Brock Purdy's third quarter was the thing I think that made you exhale when you think about Brock's game, because he looked off in the first half. Whether it was the organization of the offense or just him. I mean, now I don't know that it's not his job once everybody gets lined up to check everybody again before that QB sneak on the first possession of the game. But for the Niners to be misaligned, moving on that snap, big mistake. He misses Debo open later in the first half, in the first quarter. Now, I thought Debo got interfered with, but whatever. There were a bunch of calls that did and didn't go both ways. He missed Kittle on a 3rd down and 6 on the left numbers on the third possession. Then the Niners he makes a good play, the touchdown to Tebow, great play call. Debo. He actually kind of Tebow Samuel, actually, now that I think about it. He is kind of Tebow Samuel because they run him into just car crashes constantly. But let me get through the mistakes that they had to overcome. But the Eric Saubert holding wipes out the touchdown to Tebow Samuel. 4th and 3. Debo running wide open over the middle of the field. Remember, they go for the 4th down in the first half. Purdy throws it behind him. Debo doesn't make the play, but it was a bad throw. Purdy had a couple bad throws in the first half on like these bubble screen or these quick screens to Debo. Before the half, I thought it was a weak holding call on Kittle, but it was a holding call on Kittle on a nice Garendo run. Then they set up a 1st and 20 screenplay to Debo, drops it. Then on 2nd and 20, they've got Garendo out in the right flat, and Purdy makes a bad throw, and Garendo makes the catch and stumbles forward in 6 yards. And you're like, what is up? It just looked off. It just looked off in the passing game. And so you hit the locker room, and Purdy at the half was whatever he was, 10 of 16. And 10 of 16. It's just like, and with some significant misses. On long throws, significant misses, and on short throws, significant misses. But I'll just tell you, my halftime opinion of the game was that the players were making mistakes on plays that I thought Kyle Shanahan was kind of nailing his play calling in the first half. So third quarter starts, and what happens? Purdy was dialed. He was really good in the third quarter. He was really good with when to run. And as usual, and I said this early in the year, and I'll repeat it, I haven't said it for a few weeks, but I think part of the reason Brock is such an effective scrambler, in addition to his athleticism, is when you watch him run, what do you notice? What do you notice when Brock runs? That there's nobody around. And the reason is because he doesn't leave the pocket early, because he can hang in the pocket, and he doesn't run until he has to. The routes have developed down the field. There's not a bunch of dudes hanging around the line of scrimmage. And so Brock goes to open space. Like it's really apparent once you notice it and you're looking for it, how effective he is in part because he runs when there's space to run. He's really good at choosing it, where to go, when to go, how long to stay, when to go. Sometimes he stays too long or tries to, but for the most part, that happens. But yeah, for the most part. So he was a really effective runner in the third quarter. He played a great third quarter. He was 7 of 7 throwing the ball for 100 yards. He was 5 of 5 rushing in some big spots. And they had a big third down conversion in the red zone. They were better. What was the final? I didn't look up the red zone stat, but they were much more effective in the red zone. I didn't think he scored on that sneak. I don't think he was in on the second one, or I guess the first one. No, the second one. But he did. They called it a touchdown. I love the sneak from the 3-yard line. I love that play. Well, that was the only one, right? He only had one rushing touchdown. Was that the same play? I thought he clearly got in when I saw it live. And then when they showed that sideline view, I was like, they upheld it. And Collinsworth said, yeah, it's a touchdown. But just because they called it a touchdown on the field, they're going to stick with touchdown on the field. But I think it wasn't a touchdown. Now, I did think that Chris Conley, I didn't think that was a pick. I mean, he got the defender immediately engages. He gets run into him. If you're on the other side of that, if you're a Cowboys fan, you're probably saying that's a pick. But I thought, there's a couple plays that happened. I thought there was a bad spot on offense. Obviously, Cowan got hit on the punt return. And it's like if the Niners are about to be on offense or are on offense, it feels like Shanahan is not, like he's not screaming at the refs about the Cowan thing. If he was, they didn't show it. It's because he's getting his plays set up. It's like I'd love to see you screaming at the refs about cowing. But anyway, I thought Brock settled in that third quarter. Whatever they did at halftime worked, and he made some plays. It was great to see him get Ricky Pearsall involved. I know that Brandon Ayuk, and this is a conversation about Purdy. I know that Brandon Ayuk had not been anywhere near what anybody wanted him to be, whether he'd signed that contract or not. He had not been anywhere near what he was last year. But I did feel his absence. Because without Jennings out there, without McCaffrey out there, especially when Debo gets hurt, there aren't as many guys that have been through the wars. For everything you'd say about Ayuk, like he's won NFC championships, he's played in Super Bowls, he's played in a ton of big games and had big catches, 3rd and 12s. Like he's just been in those spots. And I think even through this year, it doesn't wipe out the thing that I think he does really well, which is he's in the right place at the right time. And we could debate, does he get open enough for a player that makes the type of money he makes, blah, 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 blah. He's in the right place at the right time, and he's reliable when he's there. When you hit him in the hands, he's going to catch it. And so I don't think you felt his absence in the offense. I just was very aware that he wasn't out there. And I thought Pearsall filled that spot well. His relationship and his ability with Purdy, and they had a miscommunication last week, or at least they weren't on the same page. He wasn't in the right place. But getting him involved with Brock in a big game, Sunday Night Football, Dallas Cowboys, like all of that stuff, them building equity together, because Brock has to really be able to trust him. And I thought going all the way back to camp, being at a bunch of practices, if you guys remember, one thing I said a lot then was that I think you'll be able to trust that Ricky Pearsall, whether or not he ultimately is able to create separation consistently against press coverage, whether he's ultimately fast enough to score on explosive plays in the NFL. The one thing I think he's guaranteed to do is to be in the right place and catch the ball when you hit him. And for Brock Purdy, that's really critical. Going back to like the Ayuk negotiations, the big reason I thought you needed to keep him was he's basically your 3rd youngest player on offense, and you've got a really young quarterback, and you're about to invest in that quarterback probably. And he plays the type of game that fits with Brock Purdy, right? It's about timing, and it's about precision, and it's about consistency. And that's why I like Ricky Pearsall, because it's about timing, and it's about precision, and it's about consistency. And, he's not going to be the first receiver taken in a draft, clearly. And they really didn't want to draft in the first round. They wanted to trade out of the pick, but they couldn't. But I think what you saw today was some relationship between he and Brock, and some ability. He's got the skill set that can help fill the gap of of what Ayuk, not what Ayuk was doing, but what Ayuk was supposed to be doing. And then you saw in the end around, he's got some of the skill set maybe to replace a little bit of what Deebo Samuel does. So, for Purdy, nitty gritty game. I hadn't thought about a grade till now. It's funny. You look at the stats, and I try to not look at the stats first unless there's something I really need to know, because the box score scouting can skew you a little bit. But 18 to 26 is 69% for 260 yards. Now, some of those are catch and runs, but great. I mean, the Niners had not been, that was the other thing. The Niners had not been the Yak team that you're used to. And I don't know what the Yak number was today, but it felt like a pretty effective, it felt pretty effective. 260 divided by 18 is 14 yards per completion. I mean, that is excellent. But can I get Yak out of this box score? I don't think I can. I'll have to wait till Monday to get the Yak yards. But playing perfect games is fun for a quarterback. I'm not talking about the team here. This was far from perfect. Playing perfect games are fun, but they're just not reality, right? Playing imperfect games are reality. And Brock Purdy played an imperfect game today, but he made plays when he had to in the third quarter. Now, late in the game, I said, this isn't when they're up, getting the ball, 6-point game, 3:20 left in the game. You're thinking this is 3:32. Okay, 3:32. This is not a game-winning drive situation, but it is a clutch crunch time situation. And they got to figure out, and I don't know if they got to take their time. I go back and watch the end of that game on the second down, but they've got to figure out this thing where in those situations, they have possessions just completely blown up at the end of the game by pressure. And it feels like sometimes they don't take the time to make sure they've got it blocked up properly. The Cardinal game, now they were in a 2-minute at the end of the Cardinal game, but they're rushing. They don't get it protected, and Brock gets hit. And here you could argue, what is he supposed to do? Isaac Guerrero, that's the guy. He just doesn't get there. He misses him, whatever the reason. And maybe that's the explanation. But it just feels like you just got to bring one more, and the Niners in late game spots can have their 2-minute drive offense drives just destroyed. So anyway, I thought that was going to be a big drive for them to see what happens. And he had a 6-yard run. Cowboys take a timeout with 3:25, 2nd down and 3, get sacked. And you heard Tirico say, I don't know if you felt this way. I felt this way. I thought the ball was coming out. When you see that defender getting to him in half a second, I thought he's about to fumble on what yard line were they on? Like the 30, 31. And then he gets it to Juice, and he stopped on 3rd and 10. And they give it back to Dallas with 3 minutes and no timeouts. So anyway, the point on Brock, I would say for 69%, if Brock's going to be 69% and 14 yards per and 1 touchdown, no picks, that's going to at least be an A-level game. It did not feel like an A. I'd give it a B+ game because early it felt like a C-, and then he played an A third quarter, and then just nothing really happened. He threw 3 passes in the fourth quarter, but he didn't turn it over. But he almost did. I mean, he was doing a Joe Montana the catch impression, rolling right, back pedal. Instead of hitting his tight end soaring over the middle, he threw it through a guy's arms, and it could have been pick 6 by a defensive lineman. So that was not great. As someone in Prize Picks who had Brock Purdy less than half an interception, that was a terrifying moment. But he did hold on to the ball on the blitz. So that's where I settle in. A perfectly impressive but not perfect situation. He ran for clutch 60 yards. Yeah, he really did. I mean, he is so his timing when he runs. I mean, he had 4 carries for 8 carries for 56 yards. I mean, up until the end, he was the leading rusher. I think you heard him say it on the game. So, yeah, the near pick for no reason was disastrous. But I do wonder if part of it came from the fact that they tried to play a 3-quarter game. And they're 4 quarters. Like the old Niners used to be able to play 5 quarters, right? It'd be kind of close at the half. They'd put you away in the 3rd quarter. They'd score more in the 4th. And if you wanted to play a 5th, they'd score 55, right? Not today. I mean, 30 points as a 6-point win. It feels like the old Niners, quote unquote, they would have scored 44 today and won this game by, 20 plus. So, you could argue it's garbage time, but it wasn't garbage time. It wasn't garbage time. But they didn't throw the ball, 1 of 3 passing in the 4th quarter, and they stopped pressuring a quarterback who clearly cannot handle their pressure. What else did we like? I think if you are okay, let's look at it this way now. So you're 4-4. In the big picture, I'm not going to say what's the best case scenario, but what's the argument for just breathing a little easy on the bye week? And it's a pretty easy argument to make. Your division's not very good, but it's also not terrible, right? I would say Seattle's 4-4, and I don't think offer much of a threat in the division, but they can always pick you off once. But the Rams are improving, and we know that Arizona makes life difficult for you. But you just got to go win the division. That's the whole thing. Go win the NFC West. Christian McCaffrey appears as though he's going to start practicing next week. That's the plan. And we'll be back for your game at Kansas City, at Tampa. Tampa is coming off of a game in Kansas City, and the Niners will have an 8-day rest advantage over Tampa. The 49ers have not had a rest advantage on any of their first 8 opponents, and now we'll finally have a rest advantage for the first time this year. That's the good news. Just in addition to that, the bad news, they go back to a rest disadvantage the next week because Seattle will be coming off of a bye. And it'll be one of just 2 games this year in which the Niners have a rest advantage. The other one will be week 16 when they go play the Dolphins. But anyway, we're just talking about right now. So McCaffrey, thing number 1. McCaffrey looks like he's trending to being back for week 10 after the bye. You got to figure you're getting Juwan Jennings back soon. Ricky Pearsall looks like he's ready to contribute. He is ready to contribute. He doesn't look like it. He's doing it. George Kittle looks like a dude in his prime. It wasn't just, hey, remember the old, hey, did you know that Kyle Juszczyk is from Harvard? That joke, right? Did you know there's National Tight Ends Day? Like, okay. Unless I'm getting a day off of school for this, like, let's pump the brakes a little bit here. I heard about it 3 million times today. So you got those keys. The other thing is that the young DBs, Mustafa and Renardo Green, have been they have fit in from a culture standpoint immediately. I'm sure that they go to the tape and go, Renardo, we would have preferred that you did this instead of this. But he plays with that same level of intensity that Mustafa plays with, and Mustafa plays his ass off. And we're not even talking about Lenore yet, who's going to get, I'm going to guess right now, they're going to have to give him around $48 million guaranteed, in full guarantee this offseason, right? Deommodore Lenore looks fantastic. Mooney Ward probably going to be gone because you got to keep Deommodore Lenore. And you pair him with Green and Mustafa. Malik Mustafa, I know that Hufanga was an all-pro. and was a really good player. It felt like he was a little bit of an all-pro in a year where there weren't other all-pros at that position. Malik Mustafa feels more dynamic. I mean, Hufanga was pretty dynamic at the beginning. Certainly more than, I think if you had to choose between Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown, you'd take Malik Mustafa. So there's just quite a bit of promise there. And they bring a little bit of juice to a defense that needs it. Somebody made the comment, I don't remember who it was, one of the players during the last week in a podcast somewhere, that Dre Greenlaw, they miss his juice. And maybe he'll be back soon, maybe. But I think Mustafa, you need some of that young energy. And Mustafa brings it, Renardo Green brings it. Those guys both caused, Renardo Green and I guess Diamador Lenore caused the other one. Renardo Green caused a fumble that they didn't recover. They created several opportunities for fumbles in this game. So we'll see on Debo, but I think all in all, they're for as bad as it's been, they're moving in the right direction. Now, I did see a comment here. Let me get to this. And I hate somebody else said this, not me. Connor in the chat says, I'm so worried about the Achilles tearing when he comes back. Yeah, it's terrifying. It is something to be worried about. But here's the thing. You've played now this long without him. You can do it. You can win games, and you can put yourself in position to win games without him. I don't know if you can win a Super Bowl, but that's that's a problem for January and February. Right now, you're just trying to make the playoffs, win the division. Running back 2, Jordan Mason, it's clear he's probably, maybe the bye will help. Will he ever be 100%? No one's going to, the cliche is no one's 100% once the season starts, but the shoulder thing just keeps coming back. But you got something in Guerrero, right? There's an explosiveness there with him. Maybe you can't trust him in pass protection the way you want to, but there is an explosiveness with Guerendo, excuse me. There's an explosiveness with Guerendo that this offense needs. When you see it, you recognize that it's been missing. And that's what McCaffrey has. And those back-to-back runs that he really had 3 straight runs. And then the third one, there was a penalty. It looked like they were on their way to putting the game away then. But he had a 19-yard run and a 14-yard run. And it felt like he was bringing them something that they'd been sorely lacking. So I think that's the list of you make a case for a run. That's the case for a run. Now we're going to get to see maybe Brock Purdy in a couple cold weather games after they get back from their bye. They're at the Packers November 24th and at the Bills on December 5th. But for the most part, they're going to play teams that, when you look at their schedule, they can win enough games to win this division. They get the Rams at home. They get Seattle at home. They go to the Cardinals at the end of the year. So it's good. Comment from Adam. Penalties were brutal tonight. Yeah, they made some significant mistakes. Some significant mistakes. But what did we say at the beginning? What is the theme of this show today? You're lucky you're playing the Dallas Cowboys.